Today's questions on page 5, that booklet. These are the 5 questions that I want you guys to have a go at. As usual, do you guys want me to actually give you some time to do this, or do you want me to do it first and then you try the questions in your... Okay, 2 minutes, go. Yeah. Having a look at that first problem G, 2x over 4 and 3x over 5. Now, the most common mistake that I see people do is this. They add up the numerators and they write it as 5x over 9. All right, now if you had done that, I'm sorry to say this, but you're actually incorrect. The only time you can actually add numerators is if the denominators are the same. Right? And you got to make the denominators the same. If you're going to make the denominators the same, you got to look for the lowest common multiple. So that means between 4 and 5, what is the lowest common multiple? Like, the best way to do this, I know some people just go cross multiply straight away. All right? Don't get into the habit of doing cross multiply, guys, because you can actually make problems bigger at level 2. All right? So what you want to do is between 4 and 5, I know that 20 is the lowest common multiple, so I've got to change the denominator into 20. So that means I got to multiply 5 by 4 and the numerator also by 4. And then on the left hand side, I've got to multiply 4 with 5 and the numerator also 5 times 2x. So when I do this, I end up with 10x over 20 plus 3x times 4 is 12x over 20. And now because the denominators are the same, I can add them up. So the answer would be 22x over 20. That's the first one for G. Now, when we're looking at H, with H, you're multiplying. If you're multiplying, that's fine. You can just go numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. So in the numerator, I've got 6 times 2, which is 12. And then x times x, which is x squared. And then y is just left there by itself. In the denominator, I got 7 times 3, which is 21. And y cubed as it is. Now this is not simplified fully. All right? This one is just multiplied, and you need to simplify it further. If you want to simplify it further, what you need to do is look at how many. First, let's do the numbers. You've got 12 and 21. They both have a common factor of 3, so I can replace this with 4 and 7. The x squared, don't really have to touch it because there's only one x squared, which is in the numerator. As for the y, you've got one y in the numerator and then y cubed in the denominator. So then we can cancel out y and replace that with a 2. So your final answer is going to look like this. 4x squared divided by 7y squared. And that's basically it. 22x over 20? Yeah, you could. You could write it as 11x over 10 if you need to. Actually, that's a good point. You should actually write that as 11x over 10. Thank you. Okay, looking at I. When you have a fraction divided by a fraction, you've got to multiply by the reciprocal. So this is where you've got to multiply. You got to flip the, what is it? One of the things. I'll show you guys how to do this. So 6x over 7 multiplied. Did I do the same thing? Sorry guys. Didn't realize. Yeah, you're going to end up with the same answer as this. I do apologize about that. But that's the only trick, all right? When you're dividing by a fraction, you got to multiply by the reciprocal. I guess in my head I was thinking something else. Okay, let's go to J. J, you've got 9 and 27. Both of them can be divided by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. Well, actually, they can be divided by 9, can't they? Yes. Yeah, so what am I doing? So 9 divided by 9 is 1. 27 divided by 9 is 3. And then you got x5 and x7. So x to the power of 5 cancels with a 7, and you're left with just x squared. So the final answer for this question is going to be 1 over 3x squared. Okay, looking at K. Now K, you've got again, I'll tell you guys the common mistake people do for k. When they see x squared and x squared, the first thing they do is they end up cancelling these two things. And then I've seen people do this. They cancel out the x and x and write this as something like 31 over 3. All right? Definitely incorrect. What you got to do is you got to factorize. All right? And here's the clue, guys. Whenever you see a quadratic divided by another quadratic, you're going to have one common factor that you can actually get rid of. So what you need to do is you need to factorize first. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 21 and add up to 10. It's 7 and 3. And then if you look at the denominator, you've got x as a common factor. So you can take x out and you're left with x multiplied by x plus 3, because x times x is x squared, and then x times 3 is 3x. Once you do this, then we can cancel out the x plus 3 and x plus 3. So what you're left over with is just x plus 7 over x. Oh, sorry. So this is your final answer that I'm looking for here.
Doesn't it cancel out?
No, because we don't cancel out the x and x.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same mistake that you're doing at the top then. Okay, do you guys want any more questions like this type? Are you happy with it? Can we move on? Okay, I'm assuming we're happy with it and we're going to move on. We'll go to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put up these two questions. I'm actually going to show you guys how to do these two questions first. All right. If you're confident with it, fantastic. If you're not confident with it, just have a look through it. I'll go through these two questions and I'm going to give you similar types of these questions. So whenever they're asking you to solve for x, you're trying to bring x to the one of the sides. You're trying to bring x to the left-hand side. So in my first equation, I want to get rid of this x here. So I'm going to chuck in a minus x, which means I also put a minus x here. All right, I'm going to show you guys a couple of ways of doing this, and you can actually figure out which way is easy for you. So when I do 2x minus x, I'm going to get x plus 3. X minus x is 0, and I've got negative 7 left over here. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the plus 3. So take away 3, take away 3. And I've got here is x equals 3 minus 3 is 0. Negative 7, negative 3 is negative 10. All right, now that's one way of doing this. The second way of doing this is if I have 2x plus 3 is x minus 7, is switching things over. So you got 2x plus 3. When I bring x to the left hand or the opposite side, becomes minus x equals negative 7. So then I got 2x minus x. That's going to be x plus 3 equals negative 7. Then in the next line, plus 3 goes to the other side, becomes negative. So then what I've left with x equals to negative 10. Okay? So you've actually got two different ways of doing this. Just pick whichever one actually works for you guys. Now, notice in the second question, I actually have a less than symbol. Now this is called the inequality. The only thing you guys need to know is that with inequalities, it has the same rules as the equal sign. Don't worry about the inequality sign at all until one little aspect, which I'll show you guys at the end. So you do everything as is. So you basically bring x all to the left-hand side. So you got 3x plus 8. And I want to move this x to the left-hand side. So it's going to become minus x. And that's less than 2. 3x take away x is 2x. So I got 2x plus 8 is less than 2. And then 2x is less than 2. 8 actually goes to the other side, becomes minus 8. And I've got 2x is less than minus 6. And finally, divide by 2, because 2 is getting multiplied by x here. So on the other side, it's going to become divided by 2. And what you're left with is x is less than minus 3. Now, the only time you need to worry about changing the sign is this part right here. If that number there in the green area, the highlighted area, is a negative, if you're dividing by a negative number, then you switch the sign. So what I mean by that is if your question looks like this, negative 2x is less than 8, for example. When you do this, x is right there. When you're dividing by negative 2, that's the only time, or when I say negative, it has to be a negative number. When you divide by a negative number, that's the only time you actually change the sign. Apart from that, it follows the same rules as equals. All right, so it's always down equals, and you don't have to worry about the sign at all. So you would rewrite this as just x is greater than negative 4. That's the only time. When you divide by a negative number, you change the symbol, the direction of the symbol. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to give you guys 2 questions like this for you guys to try and do. We're going to write it at the bottom here just because I need some space. So I want you to try this one. And then I'm going to give you another one, which is going to look like this. So there's 2 questions there at the bottom there for you guys, A and B. And I've got the kind of working out there as well. So have a go, see whether you can actually get the answers. Guys, I'm going to do the first one here, which is 3x minus 2 x plus 18, 1. So, switch over the x first. It's going to be minus x equals 18. So I've got 2x minus 2 equals 18. And then 2x is equal to 18 minus 2 when it comes to the other side, plus 2. So I got 2x equals to 20. X equals to 20 divided by 2. So x is equal to 10. All right, that's what you should have got for A. For B, I'm going to carry on from here. So I've got 4x plus 2 minus 7x is greater than or equal to 8. So 4 minus 7 is minus 3x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 8. Then negative 3x, you got 8 minus 2. Greater than or equal to 6. Now, this is the part you guys got to be careful with. Because you're dividing by a negative number. Oh. How do I get rid of this one? Wait. No. Hang on. Okay, where were we? Sorry. As I was saying, if you're dividing by a negative number, then you've got to switch the symbol's direction. Okay, so then this would become x is less than or equal to negative 2. Okay, that is the linear version of it. Now I want to have a look at the quadratic version of it. So the quadratic version, well, is anybody still copying down or? Guys, these notes are available for you, all right? Just follow that little link that I sent you guys on Google Classroom. Cool. We go to the next one. It's these types of questions here. Now, this is really easy to pick up points on. When you have something like this. Now I want to do one more. Okay, question C and D, I'm going to show you guys 2 ways. The first method I'm going to show you is the standard that we always do. The other one I'm going to show you is the quadratic method that I showed you guys yesterday, the formula. So, with this one, whenever you get a question like this that equals to 0, and guys, this is another question that's really easy for points, is this. You've either got this or this. Either the yellow part has to equal to 0 or the blue part has to equal to 0. Now the reason is, when you multiply two numbers, and if the answer is equal to 0, one of the numbers has to be 0. Alright, so anytime you multiply two numbers, and if your final answer is 0, it's either the first number has to be 0 or the second number has to be 0. Because you can't multiply two numbers that are not 0 to get an answer of 0. Okay, so in this case, that means 2x is equal to 0 or x minus 4 equals to 0. So it's fairly simple because you just go, well, 2 times what is equal to 0? X has to equal 0 as one of its answer. Because 0 times 2 is 0. But if you put any other number as x, you're not going to get 0, you're going to get an actual value for it. And as for the other one, you got x minus 4 equals 0, just rearrange it. Those are your two answers. So x is equal to 0 or x equals to 4. That's for C. When you go to question like D, you need to factorize. I'm going to show you guys two ways to do this. You can factorize this. So factorizing means you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add up to 7. So you got x plus 5 and x plus 2 equals to 0. That means either the first bracket here is equal to 0 or the second bracket here is equal to 0. So I can write it like this. X plus 5 equals to 0 or x plus 2 equals to 0. When I do this, I get x equals minus 5 and x equals minus 2. And those are my two answers. Okay, I'll give you guys questions for you to try. So you guys try and do these ones, what these ones would look like. I'm only going to give you guys 90 seconds for this, all right? This should be fairly straightforward, guys. You guys can do this. Go. Okay, I've just chucked up that question E here. If you guys want to have another go at a different type of question, well, I go through the answers for this. So what we have is we've got either this bracket here or this bracket here. They've got to equal 0. So we can say that 3x is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. So in the first one, nice and simple because that's straightforward. X is going to equal 0 or x is equal to minus 3. All right, those are your two answers there for C. Going to D, you've got to factorize. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 12 and add up to 8. So we know that that's going to be 6 and 2 because 6 times 2 is 12 and 6 plus 2 is 8. And then once we do that, we got either the first bracket equals to 0 or the second bracket equals to 0. So we got x plus 6 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals to 0. So when we do the first one, we've got x equals minus 6. The second one, x equals to minus 2. Is that all right? Okay, next question E. Now this was something that I put up yesterday with the quadratic formula. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is this. I don't care if you have not seen this before or don't know how to do it, but if you came to yesterday's session, you should know how to do this. I'm going to put the formula up here. X equals minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right, that's the formula. I want you guys to use that formula to try and solve this equation. I'll even give you what ABC is. A is equal to 10. Because remember, you got to write down ax squared plus bx plus c. So that means A is equal to 10, B equals minus 3, C equals minus 1. And I actually want you guys to try and do this today. Okay, and I'm going to give you another question like that as well after we finish this one. Okay guys, so I'm going to go through the answer for this, but I've had a couple of questions regarding the solutions itself, and I'm going to show you the difference between what we did yesterday and what we did today, all right? So today, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what the value of x is. So I'm going to substitute minus b, which is minus 3, plus or minus, you got negative 3 squared, minus 4 times 10 times negative 1. All that is divided by 2 times 10. So I've got 3 plus or minus, I've got 9 plus 40 over 20. So I got 3 plus or minus 49 over 20. 3 plus or minus 7 over 20. Is that what you guys got so far? So at this point, there's got to be two answers because of the plus or minus. So your first answer is going to have plus, and your second answer is going to have minus. So when we do this, we're going to get 10 over 20 as one of the answers, and negative 4 over 20 as the other answer. But you can simplify this further. You can simplify this to half and negative 1 over 5. Now here's the thing. These two things here are the solutions. Yesterday, I asked you guys to factorize. Now if you're going to ask to factorize, that's when you go and do this. When you want to factorize, you put this x equals to half, x equals to negative 1 over 5, and then you cross multiply things to make it 2x equals 1, and 2x minus 1 equals 0. And then here you're going to get 5x equals negative 1, 5x plus 1 equals 0. So when it's asking you to factorize, that's when you do this step, and you put it in two brackets like this. Okay? But if they're asking you to find solutions, the yellow part is where you actually stop. That's what solutions are. Solutions are, it's asking you what are the values of x. Okay, I'm going to give you guys one more question like this one, and then we're going to move on to some exponentials. And I'll leave it up here. But there is one extra step you guys need to do for this one, all right? So just give me a second, I'll just grab the question. I want you guys to have a look at it, everyone to have a look at this question actually. Because this question, when you look at it, it actually looks quite nasty. But in reality, all you have to do is you've got to use the skills that you've all learned from over the last few days. What I will ask you guys, I'm going to give you guys a hint, all right? This is a quadratic equation. So what I'm going to ask you is, can you expand the brackets, bring everything to the left-hand side, put it equal to 0, and then you should be able to solve it. So I'm going to give you guys about 3 to 4 minutes to try this by yourselves. And every 30 seconds, I'm going to put in one step so that you know how I'm doing the work. Okay, so have a go, guys. Have a go. So guys, the first thing I would have done is I would have expanded the brackets. So I got 6x times x, which is 6x squared. 6x times 2 is 12x equals 10 plus x. And then rearrange it. So I got 6x squared plus 12x minus x. Hang on, let me put that in a different color. Minus x and minus 10. And that's all equal to 0. So I've got 6x squared plus 11x minus 10 equals 0. So once I got that, I can say that a equals 6, b equals 11, c equals minus 10. So I can use my quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So I got negative 11 plus or minus 11 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 10. And then 2 times 6. So I got negative 11 plus or minus 121 plus, what have you got? 240, is it? Over 12. So you got negative 11 plus or minus 361. Am I on the right track here? 12. Now remember, guys, I told you guys, did I talk to you guys about the square numbers yesterday? Yeah? No? The numbers that end with 1 is either 3 or 7? Okay, I will talk to you guys about it very shortly, but in this case, it's going to be 17? 28, 12. Wait, I'll be back. I made a mistake. Sorry, 19 over 12. So we got negative 11 plus 19 over 12, or negative 11 minus 19 over 12. So you got 8 over 12, or negative 30 over 12. So 2/3, or negative 5 over 2. Okay, now I'll talk to you guys about this, like how do you find square root of big numbers really easily? Here's a hint for you guys. Sorry, I'll leave that up here. So a good way to know is this, guys, at the back there, especially for square rooting numbers, all right? Like when you think of squares of numbers, right? If you take 1 squared, I'm only looking at the last digit. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. Again, I'm only looking at the last digit. I'm not looking at the whole number. 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared ends with 0. So this is how I know how to find like big square root numbers. Okay, so you know how it was square root of 361, right? Now I know that 10 squared is easy to do because 10 squared is just 10 times 10, which is 100. 20 squared is 20 times 20, which is 400. So that means square root of 361 is somewhere between 11 and 19, or even better, it's between 10 and 20, right? But here's the thing, if I look at the last digits, if I actually take 11 squared, 11 squared ends with 1, 12 squared ends with 4, and that's how I know that the only two numbers where the last digit ends with 1 is when it's 11 squared or 19 squared. All right, now remember, in this test, we're not going to give you guys numbers that are like really ugly or nasty or anything like that. We're going to give you guys numbers that you should be able to square. So, in this case, if you have square root of 361, it could either be 11 or it could either be 19, because those are the two numbers that are ending with a 1. The square numbers ending with a 1. Now 11 squared is more closer to 10 squared, and then 19 squared is close to here. Now if you look at the number 361, 361 is actually closer to 400 than it's closer to 100. That's how you know straight away that 361 is actually square root of 19. Okay? Just a little tip to kind of work with square numbers. All right, let's go to some exponentials now. And we're going to do some really quick exponentials, and then after that I'm going to go into word problems, guys. So exponentials. All right. Now again, I'm going to tell you this to you guys. Exponentials, you guys should be able to nail some of these questions because they are, let me have a look. They're all right. So we're going to start with something real simple. Tell me what this is. Question number 1. Question number 2, you got two questions. Remember I talked to you guys about this, all right? Again, with exponentials, we're not going to give you guys huge numbers. It's either going to be with base 2, base 3, maybe 5, and maybe 10. So it's just one of those numbers that you got to work with. Oh, and also base 4. So first one here, I'm just going to go through this quickly, guys, because this has 32. All right, 32. Well, the only combinations that you can try is 2 and 3. All right, I'm going to try with 2. If I go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 by 2, that's actually equal to 32. So in the first case, I can just say x is equal to 2. That's it. That's what that 2 to the power of x to the power of 5 means. You're taking the number and you're multiplying it within itself 5 times. The next question, you got 3 times 2x equals 24. You got to rearrange it first. You got to go 2x is equal to 24 divided by 3. And then 2x is equal to 8. Because 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then you're looking for how many times are you multiplying 2 by itself to get to 8. So you can say that x is equal to 3. Is that all right? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of questions like this, but I'm actually not going to give you a slightly different one. Give me 1 second. Okay, what I want you guys to do is try out this question here. Question 3 and 4. I'm going to push you guys in the deep end. So, what you've got is try question number 3. And try question number 4 there. It's just playing with numbers, guys. You should be able, you can do this. All of you guys did the right step, the first one. You guys did 2x plus 2 equals 96 divided by 3. The next step is this. 2x plus 2 equals 32. That's fine as well. But here's the thing. You know that 32 can be written as 2 to the power of 5. So when you do this, what you can say is that the power on this side is equal to power on this side. And because of that, you can actually say x plus 2 is equal to 5, which means x is actually equal to 3. Okay, using this idea, I want you guys to try and do number 4.
Wait, Mr. Is the answer for number 4 actually just 4?
Okay, and I'm going to give you guys number 5. Try number 5. Okay, so number 4, you've got 5x minus 2 equals 100 divided by 4. So you got 5x minus 2 equals 25. 25 can be written as 5 to the power of 2. So that means now the two powers equal to each other. We can forget about the 5s and just focus on x minus 2 equals to 2. And then at this part, you can say x is equal to positive 4. Now, when we get to number 5, same steps. 2 to the power of 2x plus 1 equals 80 divided by 5. 80 divided by 5 is 16. And then 16 could be written as 2 to the power of 4. Once again, what we have is this power is equal to this power. We can forget about the 2's. And we just write it as 2x plus 1 equals 4. At this point, you need to rearrange. So you got 2x equals 4 minus 1. 2x is equal to 3. And x is equal to 3 over 2. Okay. All right, guys, last question for the day. This is simultaneous equations. As usual, give you guys a couple of minutes just to have a look at it and try it out by yourself. All right, so many different ways you can do this. You can do elimination, you can do substitution, you can do rearrange. I'm going to let you guys try and decide which one you like to do. And then I'll show you all three methods, okay? It is known as elimination. All right, with elimination, what you want to do is you want to pick one letter that you want to get rid of. Ladies, shh. So, I'm going to try and get rid of, in this case, I'm going to get rid of the x. Because x has a coefficient of 1 here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this entire equation by 2. So when I do this, I end up with 2x plus 6y equals 18. And then right below it, I'm going to write the second equation, which is 2x minus y equals 11. So, at this point, I'm going to eliminate x. So that means I've got to go, and I guess this is what I would actually recommend you guys to do. If you want to subtract it, is you take, in the second equation, you take all the symbols and you write the opposite symbol if you want to subtract it. So this will become minus. Because it's a minus, this will become plus, and then this one would become minus. All right? So when you do this, you got 2x take away 2x, that's 0. 6y plus y is 7y. And then 18 take away 11 is 7. So at this point, you can see that y is equal to 1. And then if y equals to 1, you go back to the original equation. You got x plus 3y equals 9. Substitute y as 1. And you got x plus 3 equals 9. X equals 9 minus 3. And x equals to 6. Now you can't guess and check for this, guys. You have to actually show some sort of working out for this. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys another question here. And I want you guys to actually try it out by yourselves, all right? All right, guys, here's a question for you. Very similar type of question. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to try it out. And this will be the last question for this session, guys. So, have a good attempt at it. There we go. Then you must multiply this equation by 3. What we have is, we've got 3x minus 9y equals 15. It doesn't matter which way you write it as well. Okay, so I'm going to put 3x plus 4y equals to 2 on top. I want to subtract. So because I want to subtract, I'm going to change all the symbols to the opposite versions. And what I've got is 3x minus 3x is 0. 4y plus 9y is 13y. 2 minus 15 is negative 13, which means y equals negative 13 divided by 13. Y equals minus 1. Now if that's the case, then I substitute it back into my original equation. So I've got x minus 3 times negative 1 equals 5. X plus 3 equals 5. Therefore, x equals 5 minus 3, which equals to 2. Okay, guys, so tomorrow morning, just to give you a bit of a heads up, tomorrow morning from 8:30 onwards at the auditorium, I'll be doing the basics algebra tutorial. And then during I-time in the auditorium, I'll be doing the advanced one, which is all the word questions that we have, that we've got in Algebra Test 2. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you.